Welcome back to our 100 Stories of Joy, Hope, and Climate Action. I am here with my friend and colleague, Jamiah Adams. Jamiah is the Senior Vice President of Diversity and Justice at the Climate Reality Project headquarters, and she is based in the San Francisco Bay Area in Vallejo. Anything else you want to say about yourself?
Environmentalist since I was a wee little kid. Being a family of six, we didn't have a lot of resources. My father would take us to a lot of the parks that we had at our disposal here in the Bay Area. We went to different festivals, just taking a lot of time outside. And then my mother was an early recycler, so talked about not just recycling cans and bottles and whatnot, but also recycling clothing, recycling furniture, and really reusing things.
It's a really lovely reminder about how many of us have been influenced by our parents. Okay, so we're here to talk about joy, hope, and climate action. What's one of your greatest joys, and how's it connected to climate action for you?
I would say that one of my greatest joys is nature walks. We have just a whole range of wonderful nature trails and hikes. We are surrounded by water on both sides, but prior to that, when we were having all of these years of drought, I really saw the impact of the drought on the trails, seeing rivets, dirt rivets where we had no water coming through, and seeing the vegetation dry up. But then just seeing with this great impact and weeks of rain of just a really diametrical change. During the pandemic, I also saw that when we all slowed down and many people were at home or businesses were closed and they were forced to stay at home, we saw really a rise in more animals, more birds and nature and insects around. And I was like, wow, it's like you can see in a short amount of time when we change our behavior, how we can impact how nature comes back and how it's not too late. People were being more still, seeing how nature was coming back. That really brought me a lot of hope. We change our behavior and use less resources in the sense of driving. So I don't commute anymore. I was commuting via the ferry.
I'm curious to hear about the connection for you between nature walks and climate action.
I can see nature. I can see how nature is resilient. I can be hopeful about how we can clean up certain things, but I can also still understand that there are still pollutants, there's still fights that we have to take on, and how important the community is supporting the advocacy efforts to clean up many of the Superfund sites here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Vallejo is of particular importance to me because Vallejo is one of the last really affordable places in the Bay Area. It's also the home of a really multicultural community. So it's a really wonderfully diverse community invested in the fight to clean up Bayview Hunters Point. Those pollutants have been damaging the health of that community since the 50s. We've got a lot of really great groups that are based and working in Bayview Hunters Point, along with Climate Hope and along with the local San Francisco Bay Area Climate Reality chapter, all of whom are really doing great advocacy efforts together to really clean up the community.
Yeah, I am glad you talked about the campaign in Bayview Hunters Point because it's a great example of where climate groups and environmental justice groups are coming together. The effort to clean up Bayview Hunters Point, there are many different efforts because there are different kinds of pollution and toxic and radioactive waste, but in particular the naval shipyard, before the Navy property actually gets transferred back to the city, it needs to be cleaned up properly.
And, I consider myself to be an intersectional environmentalist. So I do care about the climate crisis. I do care about environmental justice, but I also know how all of those issues intersect with housing. They intersect with immigration. They intersect with social justice. They intersect with economic justice and racial equity.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that when we get to build our connections in our neighborhoods, then we build stronger neighborhoods, but we also remember our connections and our hope. And also, why we're doing all of this work around climate and environmental justice is because of the people we love and because of our connections with people and our communities. Any last kind of thoughts you have about the connection of joy and hope and staying active in this climate crisis?
I want to encourage those who are older and consider themselves older to really talk to young people and encourage them by grounding them in other historical fights and talk to them about other movements that had a long arc and push towards hope, and had victories.
I love that, Jamiah. I think the thing that can happen is sometimes we get to this place in our relationships with younger people where we're like, you're the hope. And they're like, but you're not doing anything. Or what are you doing? I have a niece who's 17. She lives here in San Francisco and she's in school. And right before the Willow Project was approved, she texted me and she said, I'm really concerned about the Willow Project. And she was really bummed. And so, because I love her so much and because I was like, oh, okay, let's dig into kind of like where this is. And then it was approved. That's just an example of like, my connection with her got her to think about reaching out to me. And then together, we're actually going to do a climate dance challenge tomorrow over in front of City Hall and we're going to have signs about the Willow Project.
Oh, that's really great.
Any final words before we close our story of hope and joy?
I will say that, as we are advocating, as we're doing this very serious work, joy is so important. I also tell that to young people. I love my nature walks. I just believe that when you center joy and continuing to really fill up your spirit while you're doing this heavy work, that cultivates hope, that cultivates joy. But I would say for every organizer, do not forget joy and put in one thing of joy each week, even if you're working 10 hours a week or 10 hours a day. Put in one thing that you can do for joy and do it in community. Do it in community because it's so important.
That was such a perfect summary of what we're trying to do with this Climate Hope Project. Well, Jamiah, it was a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story of joy and hope. Go out there, take action to end the climate crisis.